gentlemen, thank you for attending the Thursday, April 20th voting session of Keystone Central School District Board of Directors. At this time, we're going to start the meeting with a call to order and a salute to the flag, followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right.
Mr. Dietrich, Mrs. Donahue,
Here.
Mr. Elling,
Present.
Mr. Johnston,
Here.
Mr. Knopf,
Here.
Mr. Koch,
Present.
Ms. Lynch, Mr. Schultz,
Here.
and Mrs. Smith. Here. 7 members present.
Okay, so first up, we have our presentations. You want to go ahead?
Yeah, Johnny's gonna join us at the table and our tech team will give us the presentation. So first I'll say that the presentation for this evening for the review and information only, there's no vote being taken on this evening, is a budget update for you. And this will be, we need to get to a proposed general fund budget. So this is a proposed general fund budget and we are making a recommendation. But for those of you who were in attendance at the Finance Committee meeting last night, these slides will look pretty similar to you. Although some of the numbers have been updated to reflect any of the changes of information that has come in to us since that time. And so Joni McIntyre and I will be providing this information to you tonight. And again, as you see tonight, you're going to review the proposed general fund budget. Actually, we had originally planned to do that last week, but because Joni wasn't here, we bumped it to the 20th to today. And so may we remind the board that next month you'll be required by law to adopt a proposed balanced final budget. And also then in June, by June 15th, adopt the final budget for the 23-24 school year. These are the same timelines that you have been aware of throughout the whole budgeting process.
Okay, so on the next slide, this is the governor's budget proposal. Again, this is the level up subsidy that we received additional to the basic ed portion that we receive. Again, this is just a level up for the basic ed, an additional 1.4, and a special ed increase was about 268,000. There is proposed legislation, charter funding legislation, but that's yet to be determined. We don't know what the impact would be for
And
that.
just a note on this slide, we felt comfortable also with the recommendation of PASBO to include these dollars into the budget, into our revenue expenditures based on their recommendation. There is the governor's budget proposal potentially has more funding in it, but we won't necessarily know that by the time that this board would have to pass proposed final budget. So we cannot count on funding that we don't have, but we did feel comfortable with the level up as per what the state recommendations were.
Correct. And any out years, we do not include any type of level up additional subsidy at all. We just include the basic ed subsidy that we receive. So the next slide is your notable expenditures. Again, this slide should look familiar. We talked about the additional grant match that we would have for the Renew America Schools for 2 million, the COPS grant for 165. I did split per the request, the personnel budget items, the additional staff of 2 CTE positions, one the Homeland and one a CTE instructor, and then the additional requested for support, building safety support positions as well. Included in here is the facility bond obligation, if we choose to move forward with what the kind of bond obligation. And then new on this slide that we've learned just recently, the past last week, the health insurance increase. We did budget 10%. We needed almost 12%. So that was an additional, it was an additional 400,000, but overall from last year, it's $1.5 million difference from what we budgeted last year to what we have to budget this year.
Joni, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Okay, is there any particular reason why this is actually increasing? I mean, this seems like a huge increase.
I think what they have seen, they being insurance and actually all school districts across the whole nation, they believe that during COVID, people did not go to the doctors. They didn't keep their appointments. They didn't do any kind of preventative measures. Now they're seeing post-COVID people catching up on those appointments. Also, there might have been mitigating health circumstances that weren't diagnosed during COVID. And now you're seeing the repercussions of those appointments put off, or, those appointments catching up. Diabetes is very high on our list. High blood pressure in our insurance
Right.
community is very high on the list as well. We have 13 claims over the stop loss. In addition to the 1.15 increase, they're also going to, our stop loss right now is at 90,000. They're going to increase that to $100,000 next year. So you're going to see $10,000 additional dollars per stop loss claim that you see. So we have to take that into account again next year as well.
Okay.
I also want to just make sure that the board is aware, the board has not committed to that facility bond obligation that's on the screen. But knowing that you've set us in the direction to look at a facility project for Liberty Curtain, we wanted to make sure that we had a way to fund that. And so those dollars are accounted for in these expenses. So I also want to say that there isn't any one thing that it was contributing to all of the increased expenses. You can see on this slide, there's multiple notable expenses.
Right.
And I just want to say that, just in general, everything is costing more. And we're seeing an increased need for expenses for next school year and beyond.
Question for the health insurance, is there a active employee wellness prevention program to kind of address some of those issues? And
So that is absolutely being researched. And
Okay.
we have a company called Connect Care that will aid us in helping to start and kind of revive that program. We do put out some information, but you're right, we would like to actively have a committee or a spokesperson that will promote any kind of preventative measures, healthy choices, those kind of things. And we do have help from Benecon and Connect Care 3 to help do that. So yes, it's definitely on our radar.
because I know at the university I'm in the faculty union, and of
Mhm.
course, we're required, we have to do so many online
Mhm.
assessments
Mhm.
and participate in so many to receive health insurance. And if an employee refuses, they have to pay
Yes,
a
you need
very
to.
significant amount.
And that's where we have seen support from other school districts. If you incentivize
Yes.
people, employees, they may, actively participate in any of these, preventative measures but we are looking into that. So thank you.
And I know in our insurance program, if the employee has a chronic health condition, they're assigned a caseworker,
That
health
happens.
coach, and all those. Okay.
Yes, that
good,
is happening
good.
here.
There's also
Um,
diabetes coaches and other supports that
They
are
do.
already available.
Yes.
Good.
Rick,
Yeah.
you should get an email.
We
weekly
do
from-
get the Connect
Connect
Care.
Care
I
for,
did
yeah.
see that. I just
I
wanted to
know
make sure,
From personal
and the
experience.
public should know. Yeah.
From personal experience, I know they're very helpful.
Mhm.
They helped us a lot when my grandson got sick.
Yes.
So, yeah, they were-
Yeah, it's a great company. It's a great resource for the district to have them connected with our insurance company.
Right.
Mhm.
The other thing I was gonna mention on here also, that the $2 million Renew America school grant,
Mhm.
that's only gonna be needed if we get the grant, but we have to budget it just in case.
Yes.
Same with the
Yes.
It's our match if we get that $17 million.
Absolutely. Yeah, so we need to have it in the budget.
Right, same way with
Correct.
the COPS grant.
Mhm.
We have to have it in the budget to show it's there. So if we are awarded those grants, we have the match for them.
Yes, we have to commit that money, personally set it aside for those matching funds. Mhm.
Joni, before you jump into the next couple slides, I just want to say that we have 3 different financial pictures available to you. Previous to tonight, we've been bringing forward 4 different financial pictures. And after the last Finance Committee meeting, we were asked to eliminate the scenario to which had a tax increase to the maximum allowable expenditure because we felt we could balance our budget without going to the maximum increase. And so the Finance Committee directed us to come up back with these 3 potential scenarios for you, and then also to make a recommendation. So the first scenario, I'm going to toss back to you.
Wonderful. The first scenario is the 0% tax increase. This would leave you a deficit, a shortfall of 835,907. That is no tax increase, not changing anything going forward.
In order to balance the budget, though, you would need to tap your fund balance
Yes,
to
correct.
use the reserves to balance the budget.
Yes. For the next slide, here's a picture of the 50%, 2.55% or 50% of the Act One. This would bring the shortfall down to 347,997. What I did show, and we could have shown that in the last slide as well, but it is using planned general fund to balance this budget. If you would choose to go this route, we would use about 350,000 of general fund money.
But not out of this fund balance.
Yes,
Right.
out of the fund balance, yes, out of the general fund balance, correct, correct. This would have a median assessed value of 99,500 and on average would be about $36.
So it'd be a
Next.
$36 average increase.
Per household, so
household.
yes,
That's in the Clinton County part of it.
that's Clinton County,
Okay.
yes, correct. Then the last slide is that your 75% or the 3.83 partial tax increase. Here you can see that I did budget, I'm sorry, I did balance. Showing us 0, not using any general fund balance. This would bring in about $999,981. And with that, the budget can be balanced at 75%. This would be an average cost, again, the median value of 99,500, about $55 per household.
I have a question.
Sure.
What do you consider an adequate fund balance to maintain?
It's typically about 8% of your budget.
They recommend that too, so that you have 2 to 3 months worth of cash on hand in order to pay our bill, whatever the district bills would be for 2 to 3 months. If you remember a couple of years ago, there was a situation in which the state budget wasn't passed and therefore there was no revenue coming into the district. And so you need to maintain that healthy fund balance for those reasons. We have assigned, committed funds and uncommitted funds. So we have some funds that are in the fund balance, but they're actually tied up and committed. So even though that number looks very large, the amount of available cash on hand is not as large as the total sum.
So Wayne, to kind of answer your question for last year, it was about, I think it was about $8 million non-committed funds, which was a healthy fund balance.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
But the 17 million that you're putting in here, a lot of that is already committed. So
Correct.
do you have off the top of your head how much is not committed?
Thought it was about, we had that slide in here. I thought it was about 8 million. I
Okay.
think that's
I'll pull it up.
okay.
Yeah, I thought
I
that
think
we
you're,
talked about that last week. I thought when
We
you were
did.
here.
We did, yes.
It would be the same as the finance committee meeting slide, right? Okay, I'll pull that up.
Okay. Okay, so then if we move on again to the next slide, which would be our recommendation to the district to use the balanced budget with the partial tax increase of 3.83%. The impact would be, again, we've not raised taxes in 3 years. It adds in the expenditures for that additional staffing for CTC programming and those 4 additional security support, which was requested by the board. It allows us to include the matching grant funds of the $2.1 million. You can maintain, without taking out any of general fund balance, you can maintain that for your revenue generation of your interest. Again, the revenue generates about 999,981 annually, which means year over year, you will see that increase come in as revenue. Again, that's about an average of $55 per year per household. I did add another slide, which is the bulleted here, but the next slide, it's a mill rate comparison so that it gives you an idea. We took our school and compared it to 10 IU or IU 10 school districts. We are actually the fourth lowest. So if you look at the next slide, you'll see this is just a comparative ratio. And what this does, it shows the district how much tax we are generating based upon our assessed value of real estate in our district. So you can see we are the fourth lowest. We're about 16.4%. The average is a 17.6. So we actually below average and the fourth lowest in our IU 10 unit. So that kind of gives you an idea of where we stand compared to other IU school districts.
And again, the IU school districts are Center, Clinton, and Clearfield counties only.
So I believe the best recommendation for the district is to recommend to balance the budget would be the partial increase of the 3.38%. This not only affects next year, but all the following out years.
So based on that information, what we need from the board tonight is some direction before next month, because next month is when we'll need to bring back to you one slide.
Right.
I think we should go with Joni's recommendation.
And I support, I mean, Joni and I did that together. So I just want you to know it's not one person. We worked with the administrative team and we've been sharing this information with the finance committee along the way. And we believe that that is the way we should go. But if you give us other direction, we've got some work to do within a couple weeks.
No, I think it's pretty important to point out that a lot of those additional funds that are needed are for safety of the school that, you know, we've been hearing a lot about with not only employees, but also other safety measures. So, I mean, it's kind of necessary.
How much of that can be covered with grants, potential grants, school safety or special funding? that
Thank
may
you
come
for bringing
from
that
the
up.
government?
Later on tonight's agenda, you'll see that we're asking your permission to move forward with applying for 3 different grants. 2 of them are safety grants. One's a facility grant. So the 2 safety grants, if possible, but we can't count on money we don't have. So we'd like to try to get the money, but we can't count on money we don't have. So if possible, if any of those grants can cover those expenses, we would always look to use grant dollars before general fund dollars. And then the other grant that we're putting in for also, it's for $15 million, a $15 million grant for a $17 million project that's identified in the 10-year plan. And then additionally, that because it's a solar project, in addition to an HVAC replacement, besides the energy savings, there would also be future savings in future years. Would be about, it's estimated another $11 million savings over the remaining 20 years beyond the project. So again, we don't have the project, we have the project on the plan. We don't have a fund source for it. So if we get if we don't get the grant, we have to continue to try to find other fund sources. So Colton, if you wouldn't mind going back to the slide that had the increases. Back again.
4.
And one more. Thank you. The notable expenses. What you don't see on here outside of the facility bond obligation is that we do have that 10-year facility plan. And I think I recall approximately $64 million of a deferred maintenance that needs to be addressed over the next 10 years. And that's what we know. And obviously that plan gets updated every 6 months, and every 6 months, more projects and more, items come to light. And so that's an evolving plan. We don't budget. We budget annually $600,000 to be added to the capital projects. So that's a little over $500,000 a year on top of whatever is in our capital project reserves. And if you recall, when we finish a year, if we finish with the surplus, we've been asking the board to consider committing that to capital projects for the future, because we know that there's an endless amount of facility projects. we're geographically large. We have over 10 buildings to sustain, and our buildings are investments. And so it's very important that we maintain them from that perspective, but also because our children deserve to be and our staff into a building where they can be best educated.
Not only are we, the facility and finance committee are working hand in hand trying to get stuff done and exploring these grants, but we have to plan, like, we had to plan that $2 million as if we're gonna get the grant, whether we do or not. So, but every time you think you're getting ahead, moving stuff down off the facility list, something else pops up. Like we heard last week, the insurance inspector came in and they told us they were not insurance anymore if we don't replace the stage curtains at the 3 schools.
Correct.
So, there was, I think it was 285,000 that we weren't planning on spending this year. So there's always something coming up. And again, like Tracy said, the big part of this is going to be, there's going to be additional staff hired. We have to do something. We've heard from everybody that they want more help to help with security. So to do that, we have to pay for it. So part of paying for it is finding the money. We're going to have to budget money to pay for those additional staff, along with some other items we're looking at.
I will say too, that the 2 career and technical education programs, one's Homeland Security and one is the education program. They have not yet been board approved. So those are potential funds. And when we talked about that, I remember we had some visitors here and I said, we really want to have this program. I just want to make sure that the board knew that there would be an impact on the budget. And so those 2 programs, assuming or, planning for the potential of those programs is in this budget as well.
And I think we discussed too, the $2 million that we set aside for the Renew America Schools grant. If we would unfortunately not receive that grant money, it would be proposed to move that into the capital funds to try to pull in some of those from the out years, and get those projects
Well, the
moving.
HVAC system is the point where they just about need replaced now.
It's end of life.
So, yeah.
We're spending a lot
Yeah.
of time and energy and dollars maintaining units
Old
just to keep them
systems.
running. And you can talk to anybody who lives or works in this facility that the temperatures are not easily controlled because of the failing equipment.
Well, this has been obviously a crazy year for everybody as far as the inflation rate, and everybody knows. And it's just the cost of maintaining, like was mentioned about the buildings, trying to do that, make sure that they're adequately maintained. And it's just, we've had a large health increase, insurance increase there. You can see that. And it's just, there's a lot of things we just don't have a lot of control over.
Correct. We just need
So-
to plan for them.
Right. And you still have to deal with
Mhm.
the reality of the fact that it's, you have to have the dollars to pay for them. Plus, it's just, we have done a good job the last 3 years as far as maintaining with no tax increases. And so I don't know. And plus the fact that we do have to deal with the safety issues.
Mhm.
So there are a lot of things there that, we have to do to, have the dollars to do it.
There is another point I just wanted to make, it's not on the slide, and that is that every year when we have retirements, and there have been many staff members who have put in some retirements for next year. There used to be a time when you could count on replacing the person going out maybe with a full career with someone with less years of experience and realize the savings. What we've noticed through the last couple of years with the teacher shortage is that you cannot guarantee that you can get somebody in at a much lower rate. And I think we saw that this board's had some public discussion on that, but you've raised some questions around that. Although that's our goal, we can't, I don't want to count on that and be upside down when that's just what's happening in the market. And I think a lot of other areas are experiencing the same type of changes in employment.
It's not like it used to be, 10, 15 people applied for every position. Now you're having positions no one applied for. So it's very difficult.
Or
It's not-
very limited numbers.
It's not here, it's all pretty much national.
Yes, and we are getting some applications. We're not getting big numbers. But again, we're getting more applications in some of our neighboring districts. Some neighboring districts have had 3 math vacancies in one district that they've been unable to fill for the entire school year.
Wow.
I know personally, I'm not in favor of raising my taxes $55 a year because I don't get raising my social security. But I think that we all have to bite the bullet and look at, we promise we're gonna do something to help with the security in school. And if it's gonna take me spending $55 more, so be it. I just quit going out to eat so much. So, but, yeah, it's gonna be something. It's just, we have to bite the bullet and do something.
And the bad thing about that, Butch, that's a Happy Meal at
Yeah.
McDonald's, $55.
Pretty
So-
much.
You're
All right. I'm gonna basically reiterate everything that's already been said. We're looking at the increase in the health insurance. We're looking at safety and security issues that we're looking at rectifying and getting things taken care of. It's just, we've been lucky for the last couple of years that we haven't had to have a tax increase. The unfortunate part is that it has finally come back to bite us, and now we do have to do it. So hopefully if we have to do this again, it's not going to be anywhere near. Because I know I've been approached by numerous constituents saying, you know, why don't you just do little increases at a time instead of doing these huge increases? So I hate taxes as much as the next person. Trust me, I hate them. But unfortunately, for us to have to keep the school district running and for it to be safe and for our employees to be taken care of as far as their health goes, I think this is what we're going to need to do. So.
And
So my
I'm just
hearing-
going to take a page out of Wayne's book right now. Just to point out two things that have direct impact on every school district's budget, not just ours.
Correct.
First of all, if the state were to adequately fund the school districts as they should be, and the court case that they just was in the favor of the school districts, especially the rural school districts like ours, if they were to adequately fund that, and they've been, I guess, directed through that court decision to do that. Now, how that's going to look and then when that'll happen, it could take a long time. But if that were to happen, then again, we wouldn't have to go back to our local taxpayers and say, you know, this is what we need to do to keep up with our budget. The second thing is the charter school reform law, or reform of the law, I should say. If right now, the charter school law, and we just talked to one of our representatives the other day about this. We've talked to him numerous times. I know that Dr. Martin, that's one of her pet peeves, and it's also one of mine. Big time, because the charter school law was written, I believe, back in 1997. And that was before the existence of cyber charter schools. And right now, the inequities in the funding that we have to pay for cyber charter schools, for every other, even the brick and mortar charter schools, we pay about what, correct me if I'm wrong, about 10% of our budget goes to charter schools, correct?
That's accurate.
Is that right?
That is accurate.
It's about $8 million, I believe, that comes right out of our taxpayers' pockets.
Yes.
And the legislature in Harrisburg refuses, for some reason. I know some of the reasons, but they just refuse to deal with it. They refuse to revisit it, even if they changed part of that law, you know, to adequately make the playing field fair. But those two things alone, especially the charter school thing, if there was some reforms in there, we might not even have to come back to our taxpayers and say, hey, we need an increase. And we have been fortunate the last 2 or 3 years. But
Just as a point of clarification, Jeff, I'm against the charter school funding formula. I'm not opposed to
no.
parents having choice, and I think I speak for you too.
Right.
You know, parents, I like the idea that parents have choice of educational opportunities for their kids. I'm not against the charter school in any
Not at
way.
all.
It's really the funding formula in the legislation. So my students are shaking their head because we spent some time together earlier this week, you know, talking about this with Representative Takak, as you had said. So I just want to make that clear, that it's the funding formula that creates. And if even one thing was changed in that funding formula, you know, it would have a huge impact on our district
What would save
because
us,
of the,
what, $1 million?
yeah, 1.8 is just with one change within the funding formula could reduce our expenditures by $1.8 million a year if no child changed their educational opportunity. Nobody.
And you're absolutely right. I don't want you to get the impression that I'm anti-charter school or anti any of that. I'm not at all. I mean, I have nothing against charter schools. You know, a lot of kids are successful there. It's the funding mechanism that they use, which is, in my opinion, totally unfair. I mean, to public school districts. And I think what was it? 94% of the school districts in the state have come out asking for changes in it.
Yeah, they've passed a resolution asking for charter funding change.
And I mean, it's not just us. I mean, everybody pays those bills. So I'm off my soapbox.
I think I saw last week, my newspaper clippings, I'm not gonna get out today, but one of them had, I read somewhere there was 490 school districts in Pennsylvania are anticipating increasing their taxes, 490 out of 500 this year.
Okay.
Anybody else have any comments? Right? Anybody online? Board members?
I could cite one thing in my fantasies. My fantasy is that we have a state legislature with backbone. Now that's my fantasy. The state legislature would establish a statewide health insurance program for public school districts. And that would free up our budget of what we spend for health insurance. Now, how is that for a fantasy? That would be.
That's a huge one, Wayne.
Yep.
Yeah, it would more than cover the health increase.
So,
Anything from Polly?
Hmm?
Polly, anything from your side?
okay.
Sorry, I was trying to unmute.
Oh, okay.
No, I agree with with everything that Jeff said. As far as charter schools, obviously, I think it's great to have them, and it's great for people to have options on where they want to learn. But the funding for it is unfair, especially for, you know, the cyber charter schools get the same amount of money that the brick and mortar charter schools do, and you know, they don't have half of the expenses. And the fact that that funding then goes out of our district, out of our area, into the, you know, the bigger cities in Pennsylvania, and that money gets spent in those areas, and that's not fair to anyone around here. So yeah, I agree with everything that was said.
I second that.
I think the entire board seconds that. So,
I just want to make sure I'm clear and understanding what I heard. I heard that the board is in favor of us bringing to you a balanced budget that includes a partial tax increase, to which the impact, what will be the 3.83% to give you the balanced budget.
Yes.
yes.
Okay, yes.
Mhm.
So then that's what you can expect to see next month. If for some reason something changes up or down, we'll adjust that number accordingly to give you a balanced budget.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Joni.
Okay, next. Hearing of visitors. Tracy, do we have anybody signed up?
No.
No? Okay. Next is the superintendent's report.
Okay, I did want to also, I had planned to mention that on Tuesday, PSBA held a legislative event. And originally it was supposed to be in person and they moved it to an online event. And I had talked with some students about joining us in Harrisburg that day. And however, with it going online, we kind of improvised and 4 students joined me in my office along with Mrs. Gugino to have an opportunity to talk with Representative Paul Takak, who was signed up for our region. Stephanie Borowitz was signed up at her time slot. I guess there was a cancellation there. So Martin Lewis and Maddie Mason from Bucktail and Sophia Dressler and Elise Seigan from Central Mountain joined me on Tuesday. I know Mr. Johnston, you were available on Zoom as well.
Right.
I thought it was a very productive conversation with Mr. Takak. He's very interested in asking us questions and asking us for data and trying to understand how the things that we're requesting are impacting our local school district. So I just have nothing else to say other than I appreciate my students being with us that event. I felt like it was a good opportunity for them to watch legislative advocacy. And then our students had a lot of really great questions. And I'll bet that the students that are here tonight could have actually answered some of those questions or repeated some of the statistics. So that was a great opportunity. Jeff, I didn't know if you wanted to say anything else since you were there.
Yeah, it was unfortunate. We only had kind of a limited amount of time with Representative Takak, but I think it was, there were a couple other superintendents and a couple of students from Bellefonte also joined us. And I think I thought it was good. It was unfortunate we didn't have more time because we were kind of, I think we had a half an hour time slot or something, but I just want to say thank you for inviting the students to be a part of that, because I think that was a good learning experience for them. And I'm glad that they took the time and had the interest to be involved with that. It was good.
Well, we've had some discussions about opportunities in the future to where they would be able to prepare some comments and do their research and be able to speak on behalf. The other part of our time together, we did talk about the student government policy, which you see is on tonight's board meeting for a review. There are no changes to it as recommended by the policy committee, but it is up for review. However, the administrative regulations that would accompany that have been modified. I've worked with the secondary principals about a week or so ago, and then I was able to share those administrative regulations with the 4 students and ask them for input. And they had some very good suggestions, and they're really interested in how the election process would take place to have a student council, and then the student council would in turn elect a governing, the officers of their group. And then the processes and procedures would actually allow the students to have an official voice as per the policy, and then be able to report out at the board meetings. At the very least, for next school year, we're planning to have student government representatives speak to the board and give updates. We haven't established a frequency or anything at this point, but we're going to be working on that over the next several months. And then the students have also asked, and I know that the policy committee discussed this, and they got to see student representatives from Bellefonte do some advocacy, that they are interested in looking into a policy that would allow the board to have a student representative on at least one, or if not 2, on the school board as a non-voting member. Some districts have this and some districts do not, but the policy committee has directed us to look into that. And of course, I'd like to involve the students in that process as well. So that's the direction that we're heading there. And then also tonight is your permission to submit the grant. The grant deadline is tomorrow. So I have gathered all those materials with Alyssa from McClure. And just wanted to mention them. I talked a little bit about it earlier, so I won't belabor the point, but this is a wonderful opportunity for us. And we received several letters of support from the community. And one of those was the Clinton County Economic Partnership, the Clinton County Conservation District, the Clinton County Commissioners, 3 of our Career and Technical Center occupational advisory programs, including construction technology, architectural drafting and engineering, and also our natural resources programs. And 1 additional letter of support came from the pipe fitters local. The creation of jobs around this project would be not only immediate, or short term for the length of the project, but it also would, because of the connection to the educational programming, and we would be adding a solar maintenance certification within our construction trades program for our students to obtain, that students could then not only have an opportunity to see real-time data from the solar project and the energy savings, but also learn how to maintain and install and maintain solar panels, which would then give them skilled credentials in order to feed the workforce, not only locally, but potentially globally. So this is a huge opportunity, fingers crossed, that will be selected. I know there were very few schools in Pennsylvania that were in a situation poised to be able to submit the grant. And I'm just we should know sometime by the end of May if they want any revisions or if we're being awarded the grant. Again, mentioned this before, but the award amounts are anywhere from $500,000 to $15 million. And we were asking for the whole enchilada and the commitment from the district is greatly appreciated because we'd like to move forward with that project as soon as possible once the dollars are approved. And that's all I have for this evening.
Very cool. And I'm also glad to see that the students are actually getting involved. That is something that I always looked at with my children is whenever they were younger, whenever it was election time, I'd always take them straight to the poll with me and let them see how that whole process works. So I think it's great that the students are getting involved with the government.
I did
stuff.
look up the number that you asked about for the fund balance. There's less than $7 million that's in uncommitted. Everything else is committed for specific reasons or investments.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Martin. Appreciate it. Okay, moving on. Let's move to the Facilities Committee report.
We have,
I'd like to see if I can go ahead and move the agenda, but if no one has any objections.
I think, weren't
Should we do
there a
reports
couple
first?
committees met?
I don't think facilities hasn't met since
No.
last week.
Nothing's changed in
Has
facilities,
no
nothing changed in
meetings
finance.
have,
Curricular, co-curricular met early this week.
okay, so we'll do that one and then I'll let you go with that, Butch. Okay, Rick, go ahead. Please.
The co-curricular committee met Tuesday evening, and exciting news from from Megan and the health and phys ed coordinator talking about implementing a new wellness perspective in the physical education program throughout the district. For many of us who are older, when we took physical education classes, probably in the 70s and 80s and 90s, and maybe even to a certain extent in some districts today, probably the emphasis was purely upon team sports and learning the rules for football, baseball, tennis, all the traditional team sports. And while that's important, team sports are serving a very select group, a small group of students. And the push from Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and from professional associations like Shape America, which represents the health and physical education teaching profession, Society for Public Health Education, American Public Health Education, all the national health associations are urging and recommending school districts to phase into lifetime sports activities. And so what that means is looking at wellness across the lifespan, and that if you can emphasize wellness K through 12, students will incorporate those activities in their lives at a younger age and engage in those activities throughout their lifespan. And so that could involve a variety of wellness activities such as bocce ball. There's just a myriad of activities that students will be able to choose from. And it appears that this is in addition to complementing emotional intelligence and overall understanding of oneself and respect and citizenship and, you know, working with others and teamwork, but also a focus upon how the student can incorporate those activities in their own lives so that when they do graduate, they're more likely to engage in that activity. So we may see things like yoga classes, we may see bocce ball, you know, just a variety. Think about the everyday activities we all engage in. And I thought it was exciting to hear from the district. And we are also one of the first districts that intends to comprehensively follow the guidelines from the Pennsylvania Department of Education related to this newer trend. And so it is another example of Keystone Central School District following national and state guidelines, and also being in the forefront of those guidelines. So I commend the school district and commend the team, our physical education program here, and looking at this as a holistic concept. They really are looking at the whole student, and it's not this mere focus upon, you know, the general term athletics. It's looking at the wellness spectrum and the wellness whole. So very impressive.
If I could just add to what you said, the committee, that was the first chance that the committee had to look and preview the proposed curriculum, the draft curriculum. And then they've directed us to be prepared to bring to the full board for presentation in accordance with policy 107. And then following the presentation to the board, the full board, that curriculum would be on review for the public for at least 30 days before it would be finally approved. If approved before, you know, the end of the school year, before summertime, we then are planning to, we have curriculum resources are in our budget every year. Because of our curriculum revision cycle, different content areas are up every so many years. And so it would be the year that those resources would be spent on those curriculum items after July 1, pending your approval of not only the curriculum, but then the resources that would follow. So we're looking forward to bringing that to you in the next couple of months. Probably sooner rather than later.
All right, thank you very much, Rick. Appreciate it. Okay, does anybody else have anything else, or should we let Butch?
Just that in front of you
Oh,
is
yes.
invitations from the class of 2023 from Bucktail and Central Mountain High School to the board members. There's your official invitations to some of the senior activities that are going on between now and graduations.
Sounds like fun.
Good time of year.
Yes, it is.
All right, if no objections, then I would like to move the entire agenda with the exceptions of G3 and G4.
Thank you.
I don't know.
Don't run into the fence.
I'll second that.
Well, or any other
any
items that
other
were
items.
moved.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone else has anything else needs pulled.
I would like to pull L1.
Okay. Okay, anything else?
Did anyone pull the stage curtains? Or not?
No.
Um, Then whenever I did get, there was a question by a board member, by Elizabeth. She's not here, but I did get an answer to that. So even though she wouldn't be here to vote on it, I would like to tell you that the company that evaluated the stage curtains, because her question was, instead of buying new ones, can the old ones be treated with chemicals in order to make them flame retardant? And the answer from that Mr. Pasella gave me from the Pittsburgh Stage Company was that the curtains that they saw had some dry rot on them and that they are already end of life. Potentially one could be treated, but the lifespan of that would be only 5 to 7 years, and then you would need to pay. I didn't get any prices on that because I didn't think that treating a dry rotted curtain was an option. So I did want you to know that we did get the answer back on that.
Okay, thank you.
So again, we're gonna pull G3, G4, and L1. Anything else?
Nice
Okay,
second.
Tracy seconded.
you got a second?
Tracy.
Okay, so that being said, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Heard Polly.
Wayne, did
Wayne needs to unmute.
Wayne unmute?
Be available.
Yeah, aye.
All right.
Okay, stay there, Wayne.
All those opposed? All right,
I'd like to move G3, the grant application.
okay,
I'll second that.
okay. All in favor? Oh, discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, opposed?
I'd like to move G4 to settlement.
Okay, discussion?
We need a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, discussion? None? Okay. All in favor,
Aye.
signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
And last but
Okay.
not least, Jeff has to have L1, the athletic pulled. So move L1.
I second that.
Okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 I,
Aye.
I have to abstain because I have my granddaughters on the list
Okay,
as a person that's going to be a game worker. So
okay.
You have to ask for nays.
Nays? Okay, abstentions? Okay, we got Jeff, so. All right. Well, with that, I think we have everything accomplished. Does anybody have anything for the good of the order? No? Or,
I'm going to move that we adjourn the meeting.
I'll second that.
Sounds good.
wow, that's the first time well, I'm not used to that. Usually I'm the one doing that. All
That's
right.
right.
Well then,
All those in favor?
all those in favor? I don't
Aye.
think I really need to say, but
No.
I don't think you'll find anybody opposed.